All right. Hey, everyone. If you're listening in, you're probably super focused on that UPSC exam.
Yeah,
And we are diving into something today that's
absolutely.
a hot topic.
Yeah.
And it could show up in
hmm
prelims or mains,
It's a good one.
the RBI's Economic Capital Framework, or ECF.
Yeah, so the ECF, it sounds a little technical,
It does sound a little techy.
but it basically boils down to this. It's like the RBI's internal rule book for how they manage their money.
Okay.
So it determines how much they keep kind of stashed away, for a rainy day.
Right.
And we call that the contingency risk buffer, or CRB, and also how much they can share with the government.
Okay. So why should a UPSC aspirant care about this?
Well,
Why is this
this is a
compared?
super important topic because the ECF is actually currently under review,
Oh,
which could mean big changes in how much funding the government actually gets from the RBI.
oh,
We're talking about potential impacts on everything from like building highways to funding
right.
social welfare programs,
Yeah.
things that actually directly impact people's lives.
Yeah.
And that is UPSC goal.
That's what we're looking for.
You got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Understanding the ECF really means understanding how the RBI ensures India's financial stability, which is one of their core functions.
Okay.
You can almost think of them as the lender of last resort.
Okay.
So if a bank is in trouble, the RBI steps in to prevent a wider financial panic.
Right.
And I can almost guarantee you that concept alone is going to show up in some form on the exam.
So that brings up this CRB
Yes.
that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the RBI's emergency fund.
It is.
And so recently, the RBI transferred a record surplus of 2.01 lakh crore to the government for this current year, 2023-24.
Wow.
Huge number.
Yeah, that's a big number, and that's where the Bimal Jalan Committee comes in.
Okay.
They recommended a CRB range of 5.5 to 6.5% of the RBI's balance sheet.
Okay.
So think of it this way, like you wouldn't keep all your savings under your mattress, right? Some would go into investments, some would go for daily expenses, and some would be for emergencies.
Yeah.
So the CRB is that emergency fund for the RBI,
Okay.
allows them to intervene if needed without causing more instability.
All right. So we've got this balancing act between making sure we have enough in reserve for these emergencies, but also giving the government funds to actually run the country.
Exactly.
And so that brings us to this ECF review.
Yes,
RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra recently confirmed that this is happening,
he did.
but
Mhm.
he's keeping it very close to the vest.
Yeah.
He's not giving us a lot of information about these potential changes.
Nope.
What's prompting this review and why all the secrecy?
Well, the Jalan Committee actually recommended a review every 5 years,
Okay.
just to ensure that the framework stays relevant and adaptable.
Makes sense.
The financial world is changing all the time, so it's
Right.
kind of like a checkup to see if the rules still make sense.
So, okay, it's like a checkup.
Yeah.
But what could they actually be changing? Like, are they going to increase the CRB, decrease it? What are they looking at?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right.
They are going to be looking at everything from global economic trends to potential risks within India.
Okay.
So, for example, if they see like some storm clouds on the horizon,
Huh?
they might bump up that CRB, just for extra safety.
Okay, so if they lower the CRB,
Right.
does that automatically mean that there's going to be more money for the government?
It's definitely not that simple.
Okay.
The RBI's primary goal is to keep the financial system stable.
Mhm.
Supporting government initiatives is important,
Yes.
but it can't come at the cost of overall stability.
Right.
And we have to remember that global uncertainties can have a ripple effect on our economy.
Right.
So even if that CRB is lowered, the surplus transfer might not change drastically.
Okay.
So this is a very nuanced decision with long-term consequences, which makes it perfect UPSC fodder.
This is where we get into the fiscal deficit, right?
Yeah.
Another key topic that we see in the UPSC syllabus.
Absolutely.
So how can our listeners who are prepping for the exam, how can they connect the dots between the ECF, the CRB, and the fiscal deficit?
That's a great question, and it shows you're thinking like a true UPSC aspirant.
Awesome.
So let's unpack that in the next segment.
Okay.
We'll also delve into potential mains question angles to kind of help you ace the exam.
Perfect.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your questions in the comments below.
Yeah.
We are using insights from the Indian Express and Business Standard,
Great resources.
so check those out for more context.
Awesome.
Stay tuned. picking up right where we left off, let's dig into this whole fiscal deficit angle and how it relates to the ECF. You know, it's a classic UPSC dilemma.
Totally.
Balancing that RBI's focus on financial stability with the government's need to spend on development.
So it's like a tug of war.
It is.
With the nation's purse strings.
Yeah, they're kind of fighting over that money a little bit.
So where does this ECF fit into this balancing act?
So the ECF basically sets the rules of the game, right?
Okay.
It sets the rules for how much the RBI can safely transfer over to the government without putting the whole financial system at risk.
Okay.
And that CRB that we talk about, that emergency fund, it plays a big part in this.
So if the CRB is higher, that means less money for the government to spend.
Right.
Which could impact infrastructure projects or social welfare schemes.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
It's a big deal, and that's exactly the kind of nuanced thinking that UPSC is looking for.
Okay.
So imagine you're facing a mains question about the ECF, right? You wouldn't just want to parrot back the definition of the CRB.
Yeah.
You'd need to analyze the potential trade-offs.
So we shouldn't just define the CRB. We should explain why maybe a higher CRB would be necessary.
Exactly.
Even if it means less government spending in the short term.
That's right. You need to show them that you understand the complexity of the issue. So, for example, you could argue that a higher CRB kind of protects against unforeseen shocks, let's say a global recession.
Right.
And that stability, in the long run, can actually boost investor confidence and lead to more sustainable growth.
Okay, so it's about thinking long term, not just what's happening right now.
Exactly.
So for our listeners out there who are prepping for this exam, how can they connect the ECF to real-world examples when they're writing their answers?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So think about recent events, right?
Okay.
So we've had the pandemic. We've had all these global supply chain disruptions, volatile commodity prices.
Right.
All of these have created this economic uncertainty.
Right.
And a savvy UPSC aspirant could weave these into their answer to explain why the RBI might choose to maintain a higher CRB, even if the government really needs that money.
So we're bringing current events into the mix.
Absolutely.
We're not just spitting back, textbook information.
You got it.
We're showing that we understand how this is impacting us right now.
Exactly.
That's great.
Now imagine another scenario.
All right.
Let's say the government is pushing these ambitious infrastructure projects to boost the economy.
Okay.
How would the ECF play into this?
Yeah.
So if the RBI sees that the economy is in a strong position, they might be more willing to lower that CRB and release a larger surplus.
Okay.
And that extra funding could then fuel those infrastructure projects, creating jobs, boosting growth.
So this ECF, this is not just some theoretical thing. This is directly impacting the government's agenda.
Exactly.
This is really cool.
It is really interesting. And it's really important for aspiring civil servants to understand.
Yeah.
Because it highlights the interconnectedness of all these different economic policies.
Okay.
The RBI's decisions on the ECF can affect the government's fiscal space, their ability to spend, and ultimately their success in delivering on their promises.
That is fascinating.
It is.
But it's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it's really showing us how this ECF is such a high-yield topic.
Absolutely.
For this UPSC exam.
Oh, yeah. And we're just scratching the surface here.
Right.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do that in our next segment.
Okay.
So stay tuned and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives on crucial UPSC topics.
All right, so let's bring it all home for our future IAS officers out there.
Yes.
We've talked theory, but now let's actually see the ECF in action.
Right.
We've got some great snippets from the Indian Express and Business Standard to help us do that.
Perfect real-world examples are key to really grasping these concepts,
Sure.
Especially for the UPSC exam.
So the Indian Express had this article about RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra, basically confirming this ECF review is happening. But he didn't give us any hints about potential CRB changes.
Yeah, he's playing it very close to the vest.
Right.
Typical central bank strategy.
Yeah.
They don't want to spook the markets or anything like that.
Makes sense.
But it just underscores how impactful any adjustments to that CRB could be.
Right.
We're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
This is about real economic consequences.
The article also mentioned that this review is part of that regular 5-year cycle.
It is.
Recommended by the Bimal Jalan Committee.
Yep. So, it's not a panic move.
Right.
It's just part of a proactive health check.
Yeah.
Shows that the RBI is committed to making sure that the ECF stays relevant,
Hmm.
effective even as like the global economic landscape is shifting all over the place.
Now, Business Standard really focused on that record surplus transfer,
Yes.
that 2.11 lakh crore
Yep.
to the government in 2023-24.
Huge.
They highlighted how this is going to help the government, fund its spending plans, which is really great news
Right.
for all these development initiatives.
It's a perfect example of how the ECF directly impacts the government's budget.
Yeah.
More money transferred from the RBI means more resources available for, infrastructure,
Right.
social programs, all those things that improve people's lives and that the UPSC loves to ask about.
But they also raise a really important question.
Yeah.
Is this level of transfer sustainable?
Right.
Especially, with all this global uncertainty swirling around us.
Right. That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The RBI can't just keep writing blank checks.
Right.
They've got to find that sweet spot
Yeah.
between supporting the government and making sure they maintain their own financial stability.
Okay.
And this upcoming ECF review might give us some clues about their long-term strategy.
And this is where our listeners can really shine in the UPSC exam.
Yes.
Imagine a mains question asking you to analyze the factors that influence the RBI's decisions on surplus transfers.
Right.
You could bring in all these real-world examples, the governor's careful approach, the regular review cycle, that record transfer.
Exactly.
Craft a really well-rounded answer.
It's about showing that you can connect that theoretical framework of the ECF to actual events and decisions.
Yeah.
That's what separates a good answer from a great one.
So let's take a minute to recap our deep dive into the ECS.
Okay.
We covered what it is, why it's important, how it impacts both the RBI and the government.
We did.
We talked about the CRB, the surplus transfers, this ongoing review, and that constant balancing act the RBI has to perform.
Yeah, and we highlighted why this is a must-know topic for any UPSC aspirant.
Yeah.
Whether you're facing prelims or mains.
Absolutely.
Remember, this isn't just some academic exercise. This has real-world impacts on how India's economy functions.
So for all of our aspiring civil servants out there, keep those study lamps burning bright.
That's right.
Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop any questions you have in the comments.
Please.
We're here to help you navigate these complexities of the UPSC exam.
Absolutely, and don't forget to check out those articles from the Indian Express and Business Standard that we mentioned.
Great resources.
They're great resources for deeper understanding.
Until next time, happy studying and best of luck with your UPSC journey.